What's up guys, welcome to Monchkinz Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Monchkinz logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and welcome to my video guide for Jack's event Chaos difficulty fight. Now before we start this video, as always, like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help my channel guys, and click those buttons if you do enjoy the content that I make. Now without further ado, let's start this video. And of course, as always, we'll start off with the abilities, weaknesses, resistances, and the elements that the last boss can absorb. This time around, we are going to be fighting the Flutter Jelly. Now, it doesn't have any weaknesses, nor resistances, nor does it have any elements it can absorb. Now, for its abilities, it has its Brave Attack, which is a melee Brave Attack, Tentacle Lash, which is increasing its Brave when its Brave is less than its initial Brave, and then it will do a melee HP attack. Nectar Volley, which is a magic Brave Attack, which also inflicts the Poison debuff. Pollen Dance, which is a group magic Brave Attack, which inflicts a Speed Down debuff. Toxify, which basically removes all of its debuffs, frames excluded of course, and will do a group magic Brave Attack, which also inflicts a turn rate down. Tentacle Knock, which is a melee Brave Attack, which also delays the target by 1 turn. Slapdown, which is a melee Brave Attack, which grants itself an initial Brave Up and a max Brave Up to itself. Next up, it has Aggravate, which is a melee Brave Attack, which actually delays a target by 1 turn when it's inflicting a break. This also has a plus variant, which delays the targets for 2 turns when inflicting break. Next up is Concentrating. Basically, the boss cannot be delayed while it is concentrating, and they will lose this after a couple of turns. And you will see the concentration appears lost text, and this means the concentration status will be gone. Next up is Spinning Blades, which basically removes all its own debuffs, again, frames excluded, which increases its Brave when its Brave is less than its initial Brave, and will do a group magic Brave Attack plus HP attack. There is also a plus variant for this, and it only happens during when it is concentrating. Now, when it is using the plus variant, it will remove its own debuffs, this time frames included, so your frame debuffs will go away. It will still do it will now do a more powerful group magic Brave Attack plus HP attack, which also increases its Brave, by the way, before doing that. Next, a couple of attacks, Moving Aggressively, which basically increases all its stats. This is the Enrage mechanic, so if one dies, they will use this, or you will see this text. So try to kill them almost at the same time. Tentacle Swaying Heavily, which further raises its all its stats, and Tentacle Swaying even more heavily, which even further raises its stats. The Flutter Jelly is also immune to Speed Down debuff, so avoid trying to use that. Okay guys, let's move on to the general tips and guide. The first one is, go all out. With a few HP attacks here and there. Again, we're seeing a lot of the trend here is like 2-wave fights for the Chaos difficulty fights, so you don't really have to worry too much in terms of the number of ability usage you have left, but do try to mix in an HP attack here and there, especially if your characters do have the plus variants on those HP attacks. Next up is bring in the boosted characters. There are 4 for this one: Jack, Ramza, Ignis, and of course Sync from the Lost Chapter recently. Other characters you may want to consider are Galuf, Lightning Shadow, Tifa, Vayne, Planet Cecil, Edge, Zack, Snow, Waka, Warrior of Light, Yuffie, Golbez, Arnea, Sephiroth, Yuri, General Leo, or even Jet. And of course, there's an abundance more characters you can bring in, since the boss doesn't really have any restriction when it comes to its weaknesses, resistances, or elements that it can absorb. So you can basically bring any of your realized characters, it should be fine. Healers plus Brave Battery options, you have Selphie, Ignis, of course he's already up there, Aerith, Rosa, Penelo, Hope, and of course Ishtola. You can bring Rem as well if you want, so you can get the Type O team if you really want to. In terms of your summon, of course you can bring anyone once again, but I am kind of biased. I like to bring Shiva along for most of my fights. Okay, let's move on to the general strategies for this fight, and let's start this off with your friend support as always. I honestly feel like Arnea is the best one to go for on this one. The second best will be General Leo, and of course the Lightning as well. You can opt out to bring a Setzer friend as well. That freeze debuff is going to be very helpful as well. The next one is of course your usual delay, paralysis, and of course freeze are going to be very helpful in this fight. I mean, even though the boss can use the concentrating ability, at least you should know when to actually use it or not. Do try to avoid using your delay tactics when it is concentrating. For the most part, from what I noticed, it only lasted for like one turn, but I could be wrong. When I went in this fight, it only lasted for one turn. I don't know if it actually counts your character turns as well, because I think there was at one point in this video where one of the bosses went for concentrating again, but I don't think it got a turn and it got removed. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below. Next, of course, use your debuff evasion. If you can get away with it, you can use Ignis or Selfie to prevent the debuffs. The boss does apply quite a few debuffs that can be pretty annoying, especially the turn rate down one. The poison is okay, but the turn rate down is really annoying. So as for your own debuffers as well, so this is like the reverse for your own debuffers as well. They will not be able to use their full potential in this fight, because the bosses do have ways to remove the debuffs on itself. Even with frame debuffs, if it is concentrating, if it does the spinning blades plus, then basically all your debuffs are removed, including the framed ones. So do try to avoid it, but it's not like they're gonna be like useless. But there are some points in time, especially if you're planning to use debuffers that have a stacking mechanic, like let's say Fran, and if that debuff gets removed, it's really annoying because you have to start to build it up once again. And of course, the next one is going to be to bring a healer to heal through some of the AoE damage, and of course a tank for a safer run. Snow, Wool, Stack, and of course Galuf works pretty well. Now the last thing I would like to say about this is, try and kill the bosses almost at the same time, for the sole reason that there is a enrage mechanic for this fight. If one of them dies, they will get another stat increase, and if you really think about it, that's like 3 total stat increase for that particular boss. And you don't really want to leave it at like green health, and your damage is going to start dipping down, especially if you aren't using any Imperials or enchant in your party. So do try to kill them almost at the same time, preferably one is red at least. Okay guys, now let's take a look at some possible party compositions for this fight. The first one is going to be consisting of your boosted team, Jack, Ignis, and Ramza. You can bring in Sync there as well. Honestly, you can swap either Jack or maybe Ramza for a Sync. Doesn't really matter. As long as you have Ignis to sort of heal you through some of the damage, you should be fine. This is with an Arnea support and Shiva for the summon, Jack for damage, turn manipulations, Ramza for battery and boss, and Ignis of course for the heals as well. Now for the next team is the one that you guys are seeing right now, which consists of Jack, Penelo, and Lightning with an Arnea support and Shiva for the summon. Jack is here again for the damage and turn manipulation, Penelo for buffs and heals, Lightning for more damage, and of course delay. And it also helps that she can imperil the Lightning imperil down, because she's gonna do good enough damage even with all the stat increase that the boss gets. Now as for the third team, I have here a bunch of the new characters that just got their realization. Snow, Aerith, Waka with Arnea support, and Shiva for the summon. Snow for the tanking, of course you're going to be really safe with Snow around. Aerith for just the heals in case you do get hit by a big one. Waka for the support battery, and of course the clutch blind here and there. So I think this team is pretty good. Unfortunately, you can really try it out, but I would like to highlight some of the new characters that we just got recently, and I think this should be well, good enough actually to clear this fight. Now, as for the final one, we have the delay team. Of course, this is kind of like a mix. You can mix things around. You got Y'shtola, Arnea, and Lightning. Of course, you can replace Y'shtola with General Leo if you want to, Arnea for support, and Shiva for the summon. Of course, Vayne is pretty good as well, so you can switch anyone around. As long as you have some sort of Brave Battery, at least you should be fine. So either Y'shtola or General Leo for your Brave Battery, and you should be okay. Alright guys, so we're finally towards the end of this video, and of course I'll give you guys my final thoughts on this fight. Now, in all honesty, I didn't really have any problems with this fight at all. I did manage to get Jack's EX, which sort of really helped in this fight. You know, his dodging ability is, you know, pretty good, but it only lasts for one turn. That's the only drawback with that. But I think with the turn manipulation that he brought, I didn't really have much worry, even though he was only at 1 health. You can use multiple of his abilities to ensure that he keeps getting a turn and basically, you know, refresh his HP, and you know, you can do a brave attack afterwards. So overall, I didn't really have any difficulties in this fight. I can really see that things can be a problem if you do get debuffed quite often, especially with that turn rate down. When I got hit by that, I was like, whoa, what was that? Because this was sort of like a blind run, and I didn't know what concentrating does, and you'll probably see somewhere in this video where I actually click the details and see what that was. And basically, yeah, the delaying can be stopped to a certain point, but I don't think it's good enough to completely stop the delay tactic. So I'd say if you have the delay tactic, you should be okay. There's really not much for you to worry about. I mean, even with that concentrating, they can still be broken, and they will still go back a turn if you break them. So Lightning does pretty well with her re-break, of course, and that's pretty important, I think, if you're thinking of using delay tactics. So overall, I'd say maybe easy to medium difficulty in terms of chaos difficulty fight, but for me it's probably more towards the easy side of things. So but I think we're getting to the point where we have a lot of characters that we can play around with, and the chaos difficulty fights are starting to get much easier, especially if they just do like 2-wave fights. So you know, and it doesn't help if, you know, you don't limit the amount of characters that you can bring with like resistances, for example. Like in the Sync's fight, you know, it was double resistant to magic attacks, so that means you are limited to all your physical damage dealers. So, you know, some way to sort of like make things a little bit more difficult that way would be nice. But if you're just gonna let any character roam free, it just makes things a lot easier, especially with party compositions. Anyway guys, I think that's it for this video. Please do remember to click like and subscribe once again if you haven't already. It does help my channel to grow, guys, and of course I really do appreciate all the support that you guys give me. And then hit that bell button if you don't want to miss any videos on my channel. And of course follow me on Twitter and on Facebook if you want at Monchkinz Gaming. And of course, leave down in the comments below your team for this fight. Let me know. There are a lot of different combinations you can do, and I'd like to see a lot of interesting party compositions. Anyway, this is Monchkinz logging off. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next level.